What is up, everybody? So we're continuing to go back and look at the original newspaper articles that were being printed at the time of Steven Avery and Brendan Dassey's arrest and what was being printed while their trial was going on. We are back now and we are on March 24th, 2006. This article comes from the Janesville Gazette. And this one talks about how the lawsuit is going to be heard in Manitowoc County. They, of course, were looking for a change of venue. The wrongful death lawsuit filed against Steven Avery must be heard in Manitowoc County because that is Steven Avery's home. A judge ruled on Thursday. Now, this is Thursday back in March of 2006. Steven Avery is accused of kidnapping, raping, and murdering photographer Teresa Halbach on Halloween in his trailer on his family's salvage lot in Manitowoc County. Avery's nephew, Brendan Dassey, is also charged. Calumet County Circuit Judge Donald Poppy made the ruling Thursday after a hearing in which several motions, including a change of venue request, were filed by Madison lawyer Dean Strang. The next hearing in Avery's criminal case, also being heard in Manitowoc County, is set for April 13th, 2006. A hearing for Brendan Dassey is set for May 4th, 2006. Now, the next one here comes from the Madison Capital Times, and it is from March 28th, 2006. It talks about how Steven Avery's lawyer seeks a hearing. The attorney for a man accused of raping and murdering a 25-year-old photographer has asked for a preliminary hearing on 3 additional charges filed against his client. Dean Strang filed the request on Monday in a Manitowoc Circuit Court on behalf of Steven Avery in the death of Teresa Halbach. Even if you think he's guilty, do you think that 16-year-old boy at the time mutilated that corpse? So-called evidence is some of the stupidest stuff I've ever heard, I've ever seen. I've read so many books, I've watched so many documentaries, I've read a zillion trial transcripts, and this is some of the dumbest stuff I've ever read or ever seen in my life. Steven Avery was later charged with being party to first-degree sexual assault, kidnapping, and false imprisonment of Teresa Halbach, after his 16-year-old nephew Brendan Dassey was also charged in the case. Dean Strang contends the new charges are unsupported and unrelated to evidence presented at Avery's first preliminary hearing. Because it didn't happen. Brendan Dassey faces charges of being party to the crimes of first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and sexual assault with the use of a dangerous weapon. Meanwhile, the lawyers for Brendan Dassey said he will almost certainly seek to have Brendan Dassey's statements to police in the case thrown out. Attorney Len Kaczynski said he feels actions by police detectives who interviewed Dassey convinced the teen to talk. Yup. There were some strategies used in that. I would say if you were talking about someone with a lot of experience in the world, you wouldn't make much of it, Kaczynski said. With case law and a 16-year-old, I think you could make a case for it. You absolutely can. Another matter, the judge assigned to hear the wrongful death suit filed by the Halbach family has withdrawn. Manitowoc County Circuit Court Judge Patrick Willis recused himself from the case after the civil lawsuit was moved last week from Calumet County to Manitowoc County. Willis is presiding over the criminal case against Steven Avery. The civil suit seeks to freeze money Avery has from a $240,000 settlement he received from Manitowoc County after he filed a $36 million federal lawsuit against the county in a rape case in which he served 18 years in prison before being cleared by DNA evidence in 2003. So the next article here is from the Janesville Gazette, and it is from April 1st, 2006, and we are finally starting to talk about how Brendan Dassey's interrogation, his statement, everything in that interview was coerced. The headline is, Investigators Coerced Nephew's Confession. The teen says he helped uncle torture and kill woman on October 31st. Investigators coerced Steven Avery's nephew into telling them the two raped, murdered, and burned a young photographer, Avery said Friday in his first public comments since authorities said his 16-year-old nephew confessed to the crimes. In a phone interview from the Calumet County Jail, Avery told the Associated Press that Brendan Dassey's statements to investigators about the murder are not true and Dassey is not very smart. He's 16 years old, and with detectives, it doesn't take much to coerce him to say that stuff. You figure out he can't even cut deer up. He can't even do none of that. So Stephen Avery's talking about how he was being charged, Brendan Dassey was being charged with mutilating the corpse, but he's not even he's not even smart enough or has the stomach to cut up a deer, let alone a human body. It goes on to talk about how on March 8th, Stephen Avery was charged with first-degree sexual assault, kidnapping, and false imprisonment. Brendan Dassey's lawyer, Len Kaczynski, said he will likely seek to have Dassey's statements to investigators thrown out. Special Prosecutor Ken Kratz and Calumet County Sheriff Jerry Pagel didn't immediately return calls on Friday for comment. It's because they had to figure out what they were going to say, how they were going to keep this lie going, allegedly. According to a criminal complaint, Dassey told investigators he heard a woman's screams when he went to his uncle's trailer on October 31st to deliver some mail. Avery answered the door and invited him to join in raping Teresa Halbach, the complaint said. Dassey said he did, and Halbach was shackled to Stephen Avery's bed and pleading for them to stop. Man, there's no evidence. I said in the last video, there's absolutely no evidence that ever took place in Stephen Avery's trailer. There's no blood, there's no DNA. He allegedly cut Teresa Halbach's hair. There's no hair, there's no nothing. There's no marks on the headboard from the shackles. There's no absolutely nothing. People in the comments keep talking about dust they see on the headboard and in the room and how that is untouched from the shackles as well. There's so many things pointing to the fact that this did not happen. Stephen Avery told Dassey allegedly to slit her throat, which he did. No blood! And then stabbed her in the stomach. No blood, no blood, no blood. And tried to strangle her and punched her in the face. The complaint said the two dragged her body to the garage, where Avery shot her multiple times and burned her body in a pit, the complaint said. There's also a ton of evidence showing that there was no body ever burned in that burn pit. It's absolutely ridiculous reading this stuff and knowing now what happened, what didn't happen, what they can prove and what they can't prove. Just absolutely bonkers in my opinion. What do you think? Leave some comments below. I hope you're having a good day, and I will see you again soon.